change your thinking, you change your life. There's some things we got to start to address if we want to get to our ideal life. This has always been the message. This has always been the thesis of these calls. We got to get to our ideal life. I wrote some notes there. I hope y'all take notes, or when you hear something, it sticks with you, because that's a seed planted that you can now water. And those things start to change how you think. They start to change how you operate. Been listening to this type of stuff for almost a decade of just pouring into myself and changing my mindset. So there's some things in there I want you to pick up from ET. He said, let the dream destroy you. Let your dream destroy you. First and foremost, do you have a dream? We talked about this on Monday. The way to stay focused is because you have actually a place to go. You got a big dream. You got a big goal. You got something that's up ahead that you're trying to get to, and it allows you to put the blinders on. It allows you to follow one course until successful, because the dream is so big. So he said, let the dream destroy you. He said, let it tear you down, build you up, and strengthen you. The person you are right now is not going to be the person that gets to the dream. The man or woman you are right now is not the person that has the capacity to handle what you're praying for. You have to let the dream destroy this version of you to get to a better version of you to get to that place. So first it starts with, do you have a dream? Because if you don't, then of course things aren't going to break you down, build you. It's going to be tough to go through the adversities, all those things, because you don't know where you're headed. So number one, make sure you have a dream, and then let that dream change you into the man or woman that you need to be, to have the capacity to handle what you're asking for. He said you need to be moved. He said you need to be intentional about your movement, about every morning you waking up and saying, hey, I'm going to move myself. You've heard me say this week after week. It's nothing external that can control you. If you are being controlled by your environment, by people around you, by your job, by your feel, like that, the things that are external from you, that's not how we're going to get to our ideal life. It's not how we're going to get there. We have to be motivated and moved internally. You have the ability to move yourself every day. You have the ability, like ET said in there. If today you're not feeling it, you're in your feelings to some degree, well, change it. Change it. There's nothing external from you that controls you. If so, we have to flip that. We have to think about this differently. The only two things we can control are actions and our attitude. That's it. Everything else we can't control. You can't control your family. You can't control your boss. Can't control your job. Can't control the traffic. Can't control anything. Your attitude and your actions. That's it. So if you are focused on controlling those two things, you will have a better quality of life. But you got to be intentional about it, right? And then he talked about that giving part. How much are you giving, right? He used to say, right, I give 120%. The audio that was towards the end was him talking to an NFL team and talking about, again, how much are you actually giving? Are you giving it 120%? Are you going to bed every night knowing that you left it all out on the field, that you did everything you needed to do? You're hitting the pillow exhausted because you've done so much, and then you rest, you wake up and you do it again? Or are we giving 90%? Are we giving 80%? Are we giving 70%? Is our talent pushing us? Is our habits just kind of guiding us through life? We're just gliding through. Are we just giving 70% to our business? We're just giving 70% to our family. We're just giving 70% to our health. How much are you giving in these areas is something you have to ask yourself. If you heard him in the audio, he told them to raise their hand if they're giving 120, giving 100, giving 90. He goes all the way through, and he's like, some of y'all didn't even raise your hand. Let me go back. Because I said, you need to do this for you. You need to be honest with yourself about where you are and what you give. You have to be honest with yourself. He talked about two things, and I'm going to dive into the text because this is what it goes to. But he says, why don't we give 120%? Why don't we max out? Why don't we give all of ourselves to something, right? What stops us from it? And he named two things. Number one, he said consistency. We all know that. What does it take to be successful at anything? Being consistent, showing up, doing it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, on end, just continuing to do it. Consistency is key. Too often we start and stop in almost everything in life. We start and stop in our health. We start and stop in our business. We start and stop in our relationship. Like we start and stop, and we have to be consistent. It's number one thing when he talks about why we're not giving 120%. The other thing he said was because we no longer have a big goal. That's kind of where I started this, but we no longer have a big vision, a big goal. I give this example in the financial space. I always say I come across so many people that know how to save for a house. They know how to save for a house. People have put away $30,000, $40,000. They've just been able to save, and then boom, they get that house. And then after that, they apparently can never save another dime. They don't know how to save money. Now their spending's out of control. And they're always like, but I saved for this house. And I'm like, it's because you had a big goal. You know you needed $40,000 for a down payment. So you did everything in your power. You were focused on that one thing. Then after you got it, what's your next goal? You want to buy a car? You want to take a trip? Those aren't big goals. So we lose the goals. So then we're not giving 120%. We slack off. We're giving 90. We're giving 80 because our goals are not big enough. So couple pointers for you. You got to stay consistent, and then you got to make sure that you are constantly feeding yourself a bigger vision, a bigger dream, something that is pulling you. But to that point of understanding exactly where you are, and being honest with yourself, it's the only way we can get there. In the book, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, funny, E.T. said at the end, right? That's what this is about. This is about mental toughness. Life is going to get harder. You've heard me say this forever, right? Life does not get easier. We get stronger or not. That's a choice. But the constant is that life does not get easier. The life that we have, right? Even if you ask for more of the things that you want, you have to build more capacity, which means you have more responsibility, which means, right, the risks are greater. So anything that you're doing, life is going to get harder. The key is we have to get stronger, or we don't. And we can just let life happen. But you got to be honest where you are. In the first chapter of this book, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets, it says the world class operates from objective reality. Objective reality. This is a separator. And you guys got to get this to get to the life you want. It says, in 20 years of competing, coaching, and working with performers from various fields, I've discovered most amateurs suffer from mild to severe delusion in relation to their efforts and competencies. In other words, most people delude themselves into thinking they are working harder than they are, and that they are more competent than they actually are. Of the 5 major levels of conscious awareness, poverty, working, middle, upper, and world class, my experience has been that the performers at the middle class levels of consciousness suffer the grandest delusions. The poverty level is barely surviving and living in a harsh set of circumstances. The working class is punching the mental time clock and counting the days until retirement. They're usually not expecting much, and no one around them expects much either. They're typically not concerned about climbing any higher. It's the middle class that is the most incongruent with reality. They're operating at a high enough level to understand that higher levels exist. Although they don't expect to get there, the thought crosses their mind from time to time. Because of their low expectations, their actions are incongruent with their desires. In other words, they want to live the life of the world class, but are unwilling to pay the price. Since this reality is too harsh to bear, they delude themselves into thinking they're doing everything in their power to get ahead. Of course, they're not. They'll tell you they're putting in far more time than they are. They'll swear that they're thinking about their vision all the time, but they're not. The world class is brutally honest with themselves, and they tend to look reality in the face. They err on the side of over-practicing and over-preparing. Champions know that to ascend to the top, you must first be operating from a mindset of objective reality. Self-deception and delusion have no place in the professional performer's consciousness. Sometimes this is hard to hear. Sometimes it's hard to hear. I had a health coach say this one time, or a fitness guy say this one time. He's like, most people say they're a little overweight when they need to lose some weight. I'm a little overweight. No one really says I'm obese. I'm obese. I need to lose some weight. I'm obese. But by the charts, you're obese. By the doctor's weight, you're obese. But the mild delusion that comes in where we don't actually operate out of objective reality, we say things like, I'm a little overweight. I need to lose a couple pounds. I need to lose a little bit. No, you're obese. If you told yourself that, instead of saying you need to lose a little weight, you then might take on the responsibility to lower your weight. It's in those little areas. When we talk about our finances, I'm doing all right. I'm in a little debt. I can handle. No, you live paycheck to paycheck and you have a bunch of debt. Like if we operate out of objective reality, we can get better results. So the first step, again, to us getting better, and it's like you have to be honest with exactly where you are in life, exactly where you are. It says in here again about the middle class. They're operating at a high enough level to understand that higher levels exist. Where is it? Because of their low expectations, their actions are incongruent with their desires. In other words, they want to live a life of the world class, but they're unwilling to pay the price. This reality is too harsh to bear, so they delude themselves into thinking they're doing everything in their power to get ahead. This is what we have to break. This is the belief, the thought process that we have to break if we want to get to a better life. We have to not say and delude ourselves that I'm doing all that I can. I spend all my time wisely. No, we don't. We don't. We're not doing all that we can. We're not giving 120%. We're not giving 100%. We're giving 80. We're giving 70. And yes, it's a blessing. You've gotten to this place, but what got you here won't get you there. So the only way you get there, whatever that proverbial there is for you, you have to be honest with where you are. Otherwise, you won't get there. And that's a harsh reality that many people don't want to face, but we have to face it because we're the ones going after our ideal life. We're the ones growing. We're the ones getting better. We're the ones designing the life that we don't need a break from. So we have to start with some of these things. This is the foundation of building mental toughness. This is the foundation of building mental toughness, is understanding exactly where you are and then doing everything in your power to actually get to the place you want to go. That's it. And we have to be aware of these things. The stuff that ET talked to you about in the video is stuff you got to go back through and remind yourself. Let your dream destroy this version of you. But this version of you, you have to be honest with yourself to say what this version of you is so that you can get to that next level. This quote from Steve Siebold in the book says, amateur performers operate from delusion, pros operate from objective reality. The great ones' habits, actions, and behaviors are totally congruent with the size and scope of their ultimate vision. That's why we call them champions. The action step for today says, make a commitment to check delusion at the door. Be honest and ask this critical thinking question. Are my habits, actions, and behaviors congruent with the vision I have for my life? Are my actions, habits, and behaviors congruent with the vision I have for my life? If you want to be a multimillionaire, are your habits, actions, and behaviors congruent with that vision? If you want to have a great marriage, are your habits, actions, and behaviors congruent with that vision? If you want to be tip-top shape, healthy, live into 100, are your habits, actions, and behaviors congruent with that vision? If not, let's start there. Let's check that right away at the door and say, okay, I probably got some things I got to change. Probably got some things I got to do a little bit different, and that's okay. But be honest with yourself. It's the only way we get there. It's the only way we get there. You guys know if you've worked with me financially, that's the first thing I tell you. What do you got to do? You got to go look at your money. Look at what you spent last month. Look at your last 90 days. Like, be 100% real. Your last 90 days in your finances was not a fluke. It was not because you had a bunch of things. That's what happens to you every year that time. That's the same habits you've had. So you got to look at it, be honest with yourself. That's how we get to the next level, y'all. If I hit you, I didn't mean to miss you this morning. If I hit you, I didn't mean to miss you. That's it. But I love y'all. I want y'all to win. You deserve it. Your families deserve it. We got a long way to go. We got a lot to do, but we just need these reminders to keep us going. And just know that it's possible. Your family's dependent on you. Remember, Your family's dependent on you. Some of you got kids, they're depending on you to get mentally tough because they are not there yet, right? Some of your close relatives are not mentally tough. They need you to get this message. They're not sitting on these calls. They're not reading the books. They don't have the vision. They are waiting on you. You just don't know it yet. In 5 years, they're going to need you to take this in and then help them through this process. So let's go make it happen, y'all. Do something today that scares you. Love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll see you Friday.